Well, good afternoon, YouTube. This is Chuck. It's Friday, June 14th, 2024, and about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's Flag Day today. So I got the flag up. So let's walk over here to the van. I got the van opened up because it's a little toasty today. It's in the low 90s. When I opened the van up, I checked the temperature, and it was 114 up at the higher point in the van. And we had just a little bit of, let me get in a position here. We had just a little bit of rain. I gotta shut the door, get the light right. There we go. Now the light should be right. Anyway, I had just a little bit of rain yesterday, and it was just enough to pull all the dust out of the air and get everything dirty. And I was gonna wash my new truck, and I'm glad I didn't, because it would have just got all dirty again today. But anyway, I'm back with you today. I got another news story, kind of an interesting one, and I've got another new interesting picture from Alabama Al that I'm going to show you a little bit later. But let me start out by telling you this story. This is another one. It's a new guy out of Utah. It's not the same. It's not my friend from Utah that I've talked about before. This is a new gentleman. And he has a very interesting thing that happened to him quite a number of years ago. And it's kind of a convoluted story. I'm trying to figure out how to tell it in a brief manner without having a 2-hour-long video. But basically, let me see if I can get this done. Well, years ago, he was riding a motorcycle, riding a dirt bike. Not too far away from his house and up in the mountains. And anyway, the road that he was on was a paved road, and there was a little side road that went to a pull-off. And as he was going down this road, he made the snap decision to pull off into this little pull-off, take a break. And so he wasn't going real fast, but he wasn't going real slow either. And so he turns to pull off into this little side road, and he drops off the pavement onto the dirt part on this little entrance. And all of a sudden, he said he barely got off the pavement, and all of a sudden he just ran into something. Wham! And the bike absolutely came to an abrupt stop. This is the middle of the afternoon, and he didn't see anything, and he got thrown violently down on his right side into some rocks, and hit his helmet hard enough and broke his helmet. And he got his hand caught between the handlebar and one of those rocks and actually mangled his hand pretty bad. And tore the bike up pretty good. He said it just absolutely stopped. And he said it was middle of the afternoon. There was absolutely nothing there. It's like he ran into an invisible wall of some kind. Well, as soon as he collected his thoughts about him, because obviously it stunned him, and he realized that his left arm was broke. Well, he landed on his right side. His left arm was up. No reason why it should be broke, but it was broken seriously. It was mangled. And so he said he kind of managed to crawl out from under the bike and stood up, and he said his arm was so bad, the bones were broken so bad that it felt like his arm was going to fall clear off. And so he took his bad hand, and he's trying to hold on to his bad right hand and trying to hold on to his left arm to support it. And he said he had his cell phone with him, but it was in his right hand pocket, and he couldn't take his hand away. But he was literally right off the road. So he couldn't wave to flag down a car, so he went up and stood by the road, and he said about 30 cars went by before somebody finally stopped. And they helped him, and they had to go down the road a little ways to get cell service to call for an ambulance. But anyway, the ambulance came and took him to the hospital. He said he was in ICU for 5 days and had to have surgery on that left arm. He said afterwards, the orthopedic surgeon came in and said, "That's one of the top 10 worst mangled arms I've ever seen in my career. What happened?" He said, "I have no idea. I ran into something invisible." And of course, nobody believed him. He said he told his wife, and she didn't believe him. And he said his best friend, his neighbor, he thought was his best friend, and he told his neighbor that. His neighbor didn't believe him either. And so he spent quite a few years just trying to reconcile with himself as to what in the world he hit. Because he knew, everybody thought he just got hit by a car. But he said he said he was there, and he was the only one there, and he knew there was no car there. He was not hit by a car. And he had no idea what in the world had ever happened to him. So he started doing a lot of research, and it affected him up to this day. And this happened quite a number of years ago. He never was able to continue his employment. He had to end up trying to figure out a way to make a living doing something else, because he never got full use of that left arm again, and his right hand always bothered him. And so it really, really disturbed him what had happened. He had no idea. Well, somewhere along the line, and I'm not sure exactly when, and he might have told me, but I spent about an hour and a half on the phone with him yesterday, and he told me quite a bit about the story. But he kept going back to that same spot after he got back to the point where he could drive again. He couldn't never ride a motorcycle again. But he was trying to figure out what may have ended up happening. Well, somewhere along the line, he got the idea that maybe, just maybe, he'd learned about cloaking and he learned about Sasquatch, and he thought maybe he ran into a cloaked Sasquatch. So he went up there and started looking for evidence. And by golly, he found it. And so his theory that nobody ever would believe him was that he ran into a cloaked Sasquatch, a big one. And what probably happened is that because when he told, let me back up, when he told me his story, I kind of put two and two together, and I came up with that right away. And he said it took him years, but he finally came up with that as an idea too. But he said nobody, and he told me when he came up with that hypothesis, if you will, he said nobody believed him. Nobody he talked to would ever believe him. And he said he thought about trying to reach out to some of the other YouTube channels and to tell them the story, but it's just outlandish enough. He wasn't sure any of them would believe him either. And so he told me that I was only the fourth person in his life that he'd ever told that story to, and two of the first three didn't believe him, and the third guy was a friend of his who was a Squatcher, and he kind of believed him. But unfortunately, he'd passed away here a while back. So he's no longer in the picture. So, I was honored, if you will, that he would trust me with that story and told me that it was free to share it, to tell you about it. But can you imagine how that, it altered his life totally, because, he was a healthy gentleman making a living with his hands prior to that happening. And all of a sudden, bam. But what I theorize happened there is that, he ran into obviously a pretty big boy, cloaked Sasquatch, and what may have very well have happened is that when he hit it, it kind of just out of reflex just reached out and swatted him away, and that's how the arm got broken. And it wouldn't be much different than if we were standing someplace and all of a sudden a bird flew into us or something, and we just instinctively swatted it out of the way. Well, that might have been what happened here, but there was no reason in the world, in common thinking, that left arm would have got mangled like that, because it never even hit the ground. It was up in the air. He went down on his right side, and it was the left arm that got mangled. So, interesting story. Take it for what you will. And I found no reason to believe that he was making any of that up. And it's perplexed him. It's bothered him his whole life. And he's never been the same since. And he's in his 60s now, and so I feel honored that he was willing to share that story with me and trust me to bring it all to you people. Well, my second story today, last night I heard from Alabama Al, and Alabama Al sent me some more pictures, and I'm gonna share a picture with you, and then two close-ups of some stuff. And the one is he took a picture basically from his backyard. And what you're looking at is the tree line across the way over there, and there's a couple things of note there, and I marked them on the picture. And one of them, there's an old boat. It looks like it's on a trailer. And then there's another thing. There's some old wood laying there, and what it actually is some old roof trusses from somewhere that are laying there. And the old boat there's a tree, and there's a dark figure that's kind of peeking around the tree and behind the boat. and you can't really see it very well. So that's, but a little ways off to the side of that, there's another figure standing on top of those old trusses, and it appears to be cloaked, and but you can still see it pretty well. So I'm going to show you 3 pictures, and the first one is the general area to get you an idea, and the second one will be a close-up of the dark figure behind the tree. And like I say, you can see something's there, but you can't really make it out. And then the third picture I'm going to show you is the cloaked figure. So let me plug those 3 pictures in right. Let me do it right here. Okay, did you see what I was talking about? That cloaked figure, especially if you zoom it in, you can see it. It kind of looks like it kind of has his arms almost kind of folded in front of it a little bit, but you can see him. It's a little bit better than the last cloaked figure I tried to show you. But anyway, that's the stuff from Alabama Al, and he told me some other stuff, and you know, he's still having activity down there, and he said there's been some kind of odd changes that he can't really put his finger on what's going on, and I can't either at this point, so we won't talk about that. But anyway, today, by the way, you notice I'm wearing a red shirt, and I wear a red shirt because it's Friday, and Friday is Red Day, and what does red stand for? R-E-D, Remember Everyone Deployed. So when you say your prayers tonight, and I'm sure you will, be sure to say a little prayer for all of our military personnel that are deployed in various locations around the world, and a lot of them are in places pretty uncomfortable, and a lot of them are in places that's pretty darn dangerous. And so any prayers that we can say for them, I'm sure that everything we can do for them will help us. And so remember everyone deployed on Friday. So with that, I'm going to close this one. This is the first take on this. I think I got it. Okay, I'm going to bring you an alternate ending on that. I kind of messed up the ending on it. I wasn't satisfied with it, so I'll keep the majority of the video. But let me just tell you that I shot a couple of videos. I shot the one about my prostate cancer, or my 1 year later report, and apparently the YouTube algorithms like that. It's actually doing pretty well, and I've got some really good feedback from some people about that. And then I did a repost on a video that talked about how I beat diabetes, and I've gotten some pretty good feedback on that as well. And that was prompted by a viewer who I was talking to on the phone yesterday, and we kind of got off on a tangent about health. And the way that came about was that he told me he thought I looked pretty darn good for 75, and I think I do too, actually. But and then we got talking about various health challenges that we've had, and got back to my diabetes thing, and I told him about that video, and I told him to go back and take a look at it. And after I talked to him, I got thinking about it, and I made that video back when my channel was really, really small, and it never really got a whole lot of action. And so I thought maybe that'd be a good thing to just repost that video again. And so I've done that, and it's actually done pretty well, and you know, it's resonating with a lot of people, because there's a lot of people that are dealing with that same health issue. So those two videos have been doing well, and I'm happy for that, and I appreciate the feedback that y'all have given me. And so let me close this one out, just as I always do, by telling you take care of each other and love each other and take care of yourself. And it's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful life. And so until I talk to you again, I guess there's really nothing more to do than just tell you, as I always do, peace out.